accountability is a troubling word, right? Because government officials will use it to mean something very different, right? But accountability, again, back to the ordinary language, to do what you say you're going to do, right? Or more importantly, as a group of young folks in Oakland told me, to do it when no one else is looking. Right? So now, what does it mean to follow through? What does it mean to have these spaces of accountability? How do we now begin to discuss this? So I've been using critical race theory for the last 15 years. There's a guy named Eric Yamamoto, who's a legal scholar. He said this thing that just was tattooed in my brain as a graduate student. He said we need to spend less time abstract theorizing and more time on the ground with people who are experiencing suffering, because that suffering at any given time could be our own, and it is our own. Right? So this thing around, I really appreciate the morning panel and Dakota Irby saying, white supremacy benefits no one. Right? So when we talk about white supremacy, we're not talking about white people. We're talking about an ideology that rationalizes the assumed beliefs of Western European heteronormative white males as normal, right, and good. Right? That's the process of white supremacy. That is what we're dealing with. And every group interprets that in a very different way. Right? So now when we look at those layers, we have to be very clear. You know, are we interrupting the colonial project, or are we, give you all another academic word, reifying it? Right? Or doing it some more? Right? Right? So this thing around how do we now have these spaces and really talking about this in ways that are troubling, right? And if we're accountable, what are the terms of accountability, right? So I teach at a high school, one of my former undergraduate students. The high school was started by a group of community members who went on a 19-day hunger strike. One of the things that we promised in writing of the proposal that myself and another colleague by the name of Rico Gutstein, that we would teach at the school. We wrote it in the proposal, right? So if you look at the proposal, it says we will teach these courses at the school. And we wanted to up that even further. We wanted to give them early college credit, because we know that young folks in historically underserved and under-resourced communities who are Black and Latino in Chicago actually have been excluded from college entrance, right? So now, what are the ways that we now interrupt that paradigm that we've been witnessing for the last 70 years in Chicago, right? So being clear about that, right? And then who sets the parameters and for what purpose, right? As a struggling educator, I am always asking myself the questions, why and for what? There's not a day that I wake up without those two questions, right? Why and for what? Right? And then when we figure that out, sometimes that answer is not nice, right? Because you do this, sometimes we don't even experience the burnout, right? The trauma just tells us to quit, to walk away, right? For our own health and sanctity.